So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on wherever you're dialing in from. Um, Welcome along to today's session. As you can see from the screen there, my name is Owen. I work for a company called IACT, the International Academy of Computer Training, and we specialize in all things Microsoft 365 related. Today's session is on an unbelievable feature in Excel called Power Query. Okay, or it's also known when you go into the Excel application, it's also known as get and transform. Get my data, tidy it up for me, and transform it so I can then analyze it within Excel. Best part about all of this is it's free. There's not something you have to switch on. You don't have to download anything. So if you're using one of the latest versions of Excel, I'm using Excel 365 this morning, by the way. An absolutely brilliant feature. And what's great about the 365, if you're subscribed to Microsoft 365, it means you're getting the latest and greatest formulas and new features that they're adding all the time. I promise you, if Power Query is the first time you're seeing it today, all right, it is a feature that you will find yourself using more and more. I've been using Excel for 20 plus years and training on Excel. And when you compare Excel to the old version to where it is today, there is just no comparison. And just seeing some of these tools, for example, the one that I'm going to show you today, the Power Query, that get and transform, it's a game changer. And I know that term is used quite a bit, but it really is. That if you find yourself repeating the same things over and over again, especially when you're downloading data from whatever system you might be using, whether that be a database, whether that be, the likes of Salesforce or any of these, and you're often getting data in from whatever system you're using, and you find yourself tidying it up all the time. Are you doing that manually? Because if you are, you're doing things the long way. Okay? Or maybe you're well versed when it comes to Excel, so you know what a macro is. So maybe you've been using macros in the past. But the problem with macros is, well, one, you've got to understand VBA to really understand them properly. And two, if you're using macros in a file, you then have to save that file as a macro-enabled workbook, which has its own issues. Okay? Today, Power Query, aka Get and Transform in Excel, not anything you need to switch on. It's all part and parcel of it. So whether you're using 2019, 2020, the latest version, you will find it's all there. It's not something, as I said before, that you have to download. This is the fantastic part about it. So just before I jump in and show you how wonderful Power Query is, and again, just for those joining us, welcome along today. And just to say to you as well, this session is being recorded so that, again, at the end of the session, you should get an email, and in that email will be access to, will be a link to the actual video itself. So what I would say to you as well is, when you're doing this, don't click on the link within the Teams call. Make sure you wait for the email and the email then with the link, because the video takes a while to render, and often I have people clicking on it's not working for them, that kind of thing. So all I would say is just make sure you wait for the email itself. A couple of things just before we kick off. If you are interested in courses that we provide, Microsoft 365 related ones, you want to know a bit more about Excel. So today starts to raise questions about, well, if I did know that, what else do I not know when it comes to Excel? If I was doing things the long way and there's shorter and quicker ways to do it, how can I find out more? Well, you'll find that on our website, IACT.ie. We'll get you through it as well. Or you can always email me. That's my email address there. If you do have any kind of Excel related, 365 related question, you're more than welcome to forward me an email. That's my email, owen@iact.ie as well. The other thing just to mention, who doesn't love a quick tip or a shortcut when it comes to Microsoft 365, when it comes to Excel, when it comes to Word, PowerPoint, Outlook? Well, each week, every Friday, we send out a tip on our LinkedIn page. Okay, so it's a free tip, video, 30, 40 seconds for you to watch. And what we're encouraging people to do is, we call it our tip today, change tomorrow. And we're encouraging people that once a week, you take on the tip that we've given, try it for that week, and watch how it changes your day-to-day working. Okay, and there's lots of them, by the way. It's not just in Excel, it's in Word, it's in PowerPoint, and it's in Outlook too. So all I'm saying is, if you like your shortcuts, you like your tips and tricks, go follow us on our LinkedIn page. It's also on YouTube too, and you'll get access to all of these wonderful videos. And as I said to you, I think we're on week number 11 that we've started. There's a whole lot more. We're going to be doing those throughout the year as well. So you can see there's a nice QR code just to make it even easier for you to access. Other than that, log in via LinkedIn. You'll find our webpage under the International Academy of Computer Training. And also, just to say to you, if you find that when you've done the Power Query after today's session, you're saying, I definitely want to know more about Power Query. I want to know, well, what else do I not know when it comes to Excel? Well, we have, if you're big into your webinars, you don't like the long days, full day training sessions or half day training sessions, whatever. We have an accelerate program, we call it. They could be webinars or seminars. You can run them over a 10-week or once a month or whatever, but they cover all the bases when it comes to Excel. So they start with tips and tricks, you go into basic functions, sorting and filtering. So it really doesn't matter what level you're at when it comes to Excel. If you're looking to train a team up, that Accelerate program is brilliant because it takes you from tips and tricks right up to the one that I'm showing you today, that Power Query. It even covers some of the new features. So I don't know if there's any big lookup users out there. I know anybody who uses Excel on a daily enough basis knows, well, there are lookups out there, the V and H. Well, have you discovered the brilliant new X lookup? Wait and you see. If you're not using it and you are using V and H lookups, wait and you see what that X lookup can cover. But again, all of these kind of topics, lookups, pivot tables, all the key ones, and they're covered in 60 to 90 minutes over the period of time, rather than having to take a day or 2 or 3 days out to do a full course on it. You can do these across the board. They're called the Accelerate program. And again, if you're looking for more information on those, I can provide that too. Just to give you an idea, we've also done kind of sample learning journeys. Here's one that I ran for a client of ours at the start of the year. Okay. And we were covering, they wanted not just Excel, but they wanted kind of Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So we created this lovely learning journey for them. So once a month, you can see, we were going paperless using OneNote. We kind of went through Excel tips and tricks. There's Power Query, time management, and Outlook. It covered all the bases. And what's great about that is it's once a month. It's a 60 to 90-minute session, and they get the support and everything that goes with it as well. So again, if that's something you're really interested in, you can contact me or you can contact IACT, and we have all that information on there as well. We also have a wonderful Academy Club that has just started, or we've one starting in January as well. And again, when you join the Academy Club, you get access to our monthly live webinars. You get extensive online course libraries. So for our 365 applications, that kind of thing, you get a fully branded portal that has an admin dashboard tracking, your participants, how they're, are they accessing the courses, what part have they done, that kind of thing. And it even stores certifications, that kind of thing as well. So again, if that's something you're interested for your company, we also have the wonderful Academy Club for all of that as well. So look, that's the sales pitch out of the way for the moment, okay? And again, as I said to you, once I discovered this Power Query tool, it's a tool that I find so many people out there really do need. And what I always often say to users is this. If you're asking yourself when you're working specifically in Excel, because that's what we're talking about today, there has to be a quicker or better way to do this. If you're asking yourself that question, trust me, with the latest version, there is. Okay? And Power Query is a prime example of that. So think about it. So Microsoft definition of Power Query, or get and transform, as you're going to see. It says with Power Query, you can import or connect to external data. So whether that be a database or whatever system you're using, and then you can shape that data. So for example, do you find yourself manually removing columns, changing data types, merging data together, just so you can get your data the way you need it? Well, guess what? This is where Power Query steps in. Then you can load your data in Excel. So that's what it's going to do for me. So for example, I could be taking data in, getting rid of unwanted rows, columns, making sure the data is correct. Okay. And once it's ready, then I can load it into Excel and I can start analyzing using my pivots, that kind of thing. I love the merging one. Wait till you see one of the options that I'm going to show you today. Imagine I have multiple data coming in from multiple files. Now, if you are currently doing something like that and you're not using Power Query to do anything like this, okay, you probably find yourself creating a master file and using lookups to pull that multiple data in. Well, I'm going to show you a slightly different way to do it using Power Query today. That's how good this tool is. This is kind of the first step, by the way. And, you know, if you've used Excel enough, you've definitely heard people talking about Power BI. Well, Power Query is a component of Power BI. Okay. Now, not everybody needs to be using Power BI, but if you're looking to create interactive reports, visual, big interactive reports, that's where Power BI steps in. And again, obviously, we run courses on the Power BI, but this is the first step to it. I can take my data, I can clean it all up, tidy it up, merge it together if needs be, and then start using the likes of pivot tables or you name it. Okay. So generally, when it comes to Excel, when it comes to Power Query, and you're going to see this now, there are kind of 4 steps to it. Okay. You need to connect to your data or tell where your data is. You're then going to transform it. So again, get rid of the unwanted columns, you know, split data if needs to be, whatever it is. Or maybe you need to combine data. So I've got data coming in from different sheets or different workbooks. I can combine it all in. And then once I've done all the tied in combining, then I'm going to load it back into Excel and I can start working with it. The other massive advantage is this. When it comes to Excel 365, the latest, in each individual worksheet has now got 1,048,576 rows and 16,356 columns. Now, for a lot of users out there, 1 million rows of data is plenty. They may only be working with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of rows. But more and more, we are getting people saying to us, how can I work with data that's a couple of million rows? Because Excel is limited in that respect. Well, guess what? This again is where Power Query, I can load data into what we call a data model. That allows me to work with hundreds of billions of rows. Okay. Now, the data model side of things, that's for a later date. Today, we're just talking about Power Query and how it can help tidy up your data. Anybody who's attended any of my events when it comes to Excel, when it comes to any of the Microsoft products, I'm constantly saying to users, Excel is evolving. Are you? And what I mean by that is, are you using the latest tools? Are you using the likes of Power Query? Because a lot of cases people aren't. They're still doing things the old way when it comes to Excel. And with every new release, there's new stuff coming all the time. And especially when it comes to formulas, there are now literally hundreds and hundreds of formulas when it comes to Excel. People often struggle with, what's the right formula to use now? Well, my favorite tool to help with that, by the way, is not Google anymore. It's not YouTube. It's Copilot. I love using Copilot now. Whether it be the enterprise, the free version, or the licensed version, have both. I need a little help with a formula. I ask Copilot to help me, having my own personal AI assistant. So really, that should be saying, Microsoft is evolving. Are you? Because in a lot of cases, people aren't. And it's only when you come on sessions like this that you suddenly discover, oh, wow, okay, well, I was doing things a long way. That was taking me hours to do, where now I'm getting it done in minutes. This is what I'm talking about. And you'll see that when we start talking about Power Query. Okay? So rather than me go on about how wonderful this tool is, well, let me show you. I'll show you a couple of little examples today. Only a short period of time to kind of show you these. But I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. All right. The first one is I need data split. Okay. So again, I'm just going to open up this exact file here, sample file that I have. Now remember, this particular data, it's not that big in the grand scheme of things, because you can see here, it's got 9,993 rows. So it's 9,992 rows of data, and the headings make it 9,993. And in the grand scheme of things, as I just said, that's tiny because you've got 1 million plus rows. Now, the other thing I want you to note here is this. When it comes to Excel, if you want your data working for you, you need to start using tables. That's a table, by the way. Okay, and how you can tell it's a table, not just by the formatting, but when I click inside it, you can see I've got a lovely tab here called Table Design. And you can see that this data, this table, is called TBL Sales Raw Data, because it's the raw data at the moment. Because by turning your data, your ranges, your lists into tables, you're now making your data global and dynamic. And they, trust me, are two key terms you want when it comes to Excel. If you want your data working better for you, make sure you're using tables. Global means that, see that TBL sales raw data, I can go into any sheet of this workbook, and anytime I want to refer to that data, there it is there. I can access it, TBL sales raw data. That's what global means. There's no more clicking inside the range, highlighting the whole thing, having to make it absolute. I can access that because it's named TBL, so I can access it whenever I need. Dynamic, ask yourself this. Are you going to be adding data to this? Is it you're adding records individually? Or maybe you could be adding 100, 1,000 records at a time. The beauty about a table is you drop it onto the end here. Guess what? The table automatically picks up that new data. So if your data is dynamic, guess what happens to formulas that are based on that data? They become dynamic. So again, I spoke about lookups there. How many of you are creating lookups that every time you add new data, you have to go back to your lookup and say, well, now my data is this big? Use a table. Just a little tip before we go in. So you can see I am currently using a table. The problem with this data at the moment is, do you see the way in one column I have date, category, and region? So if I wanted to break that down, I wanted to build a pivot table on this. And somebody says to me, can we see the 2016 sales? I can't, because it's all in one cell. So what I'd like Excel to do, or specifically Power Query Get and Transform, is to take this table, split the data now into a date column, category column, region column, and obviously have the sales column, which means then I can build a pivot table off that. But I also want that if new data comes in, I should be able to take that data in its rawmost format, drop it into this table, and then all of that tidying up gets automatically done for me. Well, watch. Here's how it works. I click inside it. I go to my data tab, and this is why we call it Power Query, or aka Get and Transform in Excel, because you can see under your data tab, there's a grouping here called Get and Transform. So where can I get data from? Look, I can get data from a file, from a database, from Azure, from, you can see from other platforms, Power Platforms, online services, other services. You can see there's a whole range of stuff in there. The example I'm going to show you is how to get it from a table or a range. Because remember I said, this is a table. Okay, so I click inside it and I simply go data from a table. Now I love the fact that you can also get data from the web as well. So I can click on from web and I can put in the website that I want to take the data from, and I can get it to tidy up that information too. And what it'll do now is it'll open up. So again, I've just gone get data. It'll open up the Power Query window, or the Power Query editor window. It's going to load in that data. So this is why it's still called Power Query or Get and Transform, because you're accessing it through the Get and Transform, but it opens up the Power Query editor window. Now remember, this is what I love about this. If you did anything remotely like this, maybe you were using text to column to split the data. Well, what happens if you new data? You have to redo the text to column. Or maybe you use one of the wonderful newish tools called Flash Fill. But again, what happens if your data changes? The beauty about Power Query is, watch, I'm going to take this data. What's the first thing I need to do? I need to split this data. So if I go into Home, you can see there's a lovely button here. There's lots of different things you can do in here. So everything from removing columns to removing rows to splitting data, changing data types, merging data. I can go into Transform here. There's a whole range of stuff in here. But if I go to home and I go split data, and it says, well, how would you like to split this data? So my data is split with a space / space. So is it by a delimiter, number of characters, or by a position? So I'm going to say by a delimiter, please. Select the delimiter. Okay. So I'm going to go with, it's not just a comma code. You can see there's a few options in here. I'm going to go to custom, and I'm going to say the delimiter is a space / space. And I'd like you to split it at each occurrence of that delimiter, please. In other words, split the date, the category, and the name, or the region, please. Once I've done that, I click OK, and look what it's done, split my data. Now, do you know what's absolutely brilliant about this? See those steps that I just took here? You see the way they're being logged over here? So it's remembering the steps that I took. So the next time I run this, those steps get automatically done, because you can always go back. Okay, what did it look like before I did all that? Now what it looks like. See if you make a mistake. Didn't do exactly what I wanted. Delete the steps. Look, I can delete each one of those steps and get my data back to the way it was. But that's what I want. Look, select the column. Look, split by delimiter. What's the delimiter? It's the space / space. Each occurrence, please. Click OK. It's logged those steps. Now I'm going to rename each of these. Look, so I'm going to name that one date. Click here. Look at it. Logging the steps on the right here. Category. And then I'm going to rename this one region. Brilliant. Okay. I'll get rid of all of that and call this region. Now, what I want to make sure is that it's recognizing each of these columns that the correct data type. So these are dates, that's text, these are numeric. So see the way you've got these little symbols beside each of the names? I'm going to go here and say that is not a date and a time column, but it's just a date column. That's text ABC, that's fine. That's text ABC. However, this one here, I want set to currency. Now, when you set that to currency, by the way, it doesn't put the symbol in, but it just rounds it to 2 decimal places. Now, I like the look of that data. I've done all the tidying up. I'm happy with it now. So all I'm going to do then is I'm going to go back here into my home tab and say close and load, close and load. It's going to go back to this file, create a new worksheet with a new table with all your lovely split data. Look, then as far as 9,993. So now I'll build my pivot table off that, which I can break down by date, by category, by region, and so on and so forth. So I can go in here, look, and I can go in, insert, pivot table, use this one here, brilliant, click OK, and then I can say, put in date here, break it down by date, and by region, and by, say, category. And look at that, really quick and really easy. But here's the thing. What if new data then comes in its raw most format? So this is coming in from another system. So I highlight that new data. It's an extra 26 records. Copy it. And all I'm going to do is go back to the original table, the raw data, and just drop it onto the end. Now, you see the way that table has now picked up those new records. So all I'm going to do here is the one that has all the formatting done. Look, at the moment, it's still 9,993 until I refresh. Watch. I select refresh, and guess what's going to happen? All of those steps are now going to get redone, and look, those extra 20 raw records are now part of that table. So I can then come in, refresh my pivot table, and you can see my new data has been added. So instead of me trying to do that manually, okay, yes, Joan, brilliant, all right, it really is. See the way it's taken the manual side. I just love the fact that when you build that Power Query, the next time you run it, all of those steps, it remembers those steps for you. So there's no macros anymore to do all of this. This is where Power Query steps up to the mark. And that's just, and by the way, tip of the iceberg when it comes to Power Query. I'm going to give you one other example with the couple of minutes that I have left. Okay. But as I said to you, there is just, like, you could do like a 5-day course on Power Query and still not cover all of that, all the aspects of it. That's just a very simple example one there. The other one I'm going to show you, and this one for me, every time I show it, gets one of the biggest reactions. Okay. I have a folder here called sales, and in there at the moment is sales 2019, 2020, and 2021. So what I would like to do is merge those three files into a master file. But not only do I want it merging it, but what I'd also like to do is do the separating of the data, because it all comes in this format here. Do you know what would be even better? What happens if we get 2022 sales in? What I'd like to be able to do is literally drop the 2022 sales into that folder there, and guess what happens? Merges it, tidies it, and puts it all into that one master file, which means then I can filter off the master file. Now you're thinking, okay, that sounds, there's a lot of steps involved in that. There really isn't. So watch this. I'm going to open up Excel. This is the brilliant part about it. I'm going to have a blank workbook. This is going to be my master file where I want to see 2019, 2020, and 21 sales. But as soon as 2022 comes in, drop it into that folder, get it to do all the work for me. Watch. Data. Where do you want to get your data from? From a file, from a specific folder. Look at this. Okay. And all I'm going to do, once it loads up the Power Query editor, I'm going to tell it where the folder is. So if I go in here and I'll just go into my folder, just so you can see it working, 5, and we've got our Power Query files, and there's the folder there, sales. Okay, open. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go to that folder and look and see, okay, I've found 3 files in there, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Now, what I'd like to do is not only combine these, but I need to transform the data. In other words, take the 3 files, mash them together, but also split them. You know, the 3 columns that need to be split, or the column into 3. Okay, so I'm going to say combine and transform the data. Now watch. Open it up. Still analyzing the 3 files that are in that folder. And all I have to do, give it a couple of seconds. It says, okay, here's an example of the first file. So if I go to TBL sales, there it is there. So it's just giving me a quick example of what's in one of the files using 2019 as because that's the first file in there. Great. Click OK. And all I'm going to do now is do the transforming of that data, because it's going to do the merging. Watch this. Transform the data. Give it a second. Into the Power Query editor. Okay. And you can see, well, do I need a column that will say sales 2019, sales 2020? No. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to say remove that column, please, because I don't need it. Now I'm going to go in and say split this data, please. And remember, this is going to do this for the 3 files. So remember, the 3 files have to be the same. Obviously, the data won't. Each occurrence, click OK. Look, set that to date. Set that to category. And remember, look, all the steps are being logged over here. Look, the merging of the data. So if I go into region, please. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set that to currency. There's my steps done. And all I'm going to do then is say close and load. Okay, so to load it back in, close and load back in here. And watch, I now have a table with all 3 files merged into the one. Look, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So if I was to build a pivot table off that, look, I can come in here, insert pivot table, sales, that's the name of that file there. So I can stick date in there. Brilliant, there's 2020 and the sales, right? Superb. Well, this is where it gets better. Watch this. Now we receive the 2022 files. All I have to do is drag it from here into that folder. Watch. Go back to my master file. Refresh. Right click. Refresh. And look what's sitting in there. So when I come back to my pivot table, all I have to do is refresh my lovely pivot table, and guess what's been included in there also. No more lookups, building big complex lookups. Yeah, absolutely, John. No more complex lookup. You can see it makes it so much easier. And those tables, merging them all into one. And I just love the fact that you can literally take a file, drop it into the folder, and all that work. gets done for you. Are you doing things the long way? Well, if you weren't using Power Query, chances are you were. But look, guys, that is, as I said to you, tip of the iceberg stuff. I hope that's given you kind of what I call the lovely light bulb moment. Oh my God, that's definitely something I can use, because I know most Excel users out there could. If you have any questions or queries, you have my email address. You can always pop me a line. Don't forget to watch out for the videos too. Other than that, have a great day, guys, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks a million.